Southwest Stories with Steve Brown is made possible by the support of The Real Route 66, Chicago to LA, a 2-week tour of America's Mother Road, May 2015. Cactus Mart, a dig-your-own cactus nursery and desert artist gallery on the highway to Joshua Tree National Park in Morongo Valley. Calmada Boutique Hotel, a desert bed and breakfast resort with a French chef, located on 40 acres near Joshua Tree National Park. China Ranch, a working date farm and natural oasis near Death Valley National Park, open for visitation year-round. The Ridgecrest area, western gateway to Death Valley National Park, home to the annual Petroglyph Festival. Lake Havasu City, Arizona, home to the historic London Bridge. Beaches, boating, fishing, and golf.
Some people think of the Southwest as barren and empty. To me, it's the landscape of my soul, filled with stories. Great stories of people and places, ambitions, dreams and visions, visits with friends, and mysteries of the past. There's awesome natural beauty, ancient, elusive, and wise. Adventures with characters, historical and fictional. Larger-than-life legends, captivating destinations, and, of course, everyday people. These are tales of a timeless journey and the people we meet along the way. I'm Steve Brown, and these are Southwest Stories.
Now if Jesus walk up on you out on Highway 62 and he raises his hand to touch your face and smack a devil out of you, what you gonna do?
California Route 62 climbs from the low desert up through the mountains in Morongo Valley and then up once again to the high desert town of Yucca Valley. I grew up coming out to this little corner of the Mojave, and we're visiting a place that was a regular stop for my family on our trips here, Desert Christ Park. The park began back in 1951 with the Christ nobody wanted. Sculptor Antone Martin, a former aircraft worker in Los Angeles, had made a 3-ton, 10-foot statue of Christ with his arms raised in blessing, and hoped to install it on the rim of the Grand Canyon, but quickly had those hopes dashed by the National Park Service. Martin began searching for a home for his unwanted Christ and found it when the desert parson, the Reverend Eddie Garver, offered up a place Christ could call his own in Yucca Valley. On Easter Sunday of that year, Yucca Valley garnered a great deal of attention as Easter sunrise services were held, the statue was dedicated, and Desert Christ Park, a park dedicated to peace in the world, was born. Christ had arrived just in time, though he lost a finger in the journey, and Time and Life magazines covered his ordeal, and people around the world read about Martin and Garver in Yucca Valley and how the unwanted Christ found a home at last. For the next decade, Martin worked and lived at the park, recreating biblical scenes with larger-than-life figures among the Joshua trees. But the history of the park has been anything but peaceful. After Martin's death in 1961, the park went on, maintained by local government, until a lawsuit by the American Civil Liberties Union put an end to that support in the 1980s. Though the town was really supporting a park that embodied a great amount of local history and culture, it also couldn't afford to battle the ACLU. The park is now supported by the Desert Christ Park Foundation, which has done its best to care for the park, its legacy, and its artwork through near biblical trials of earthquake, flood, vandals, and time.
Now if Jesus walk up on you out on Highway 62 and he raises his hand to touch your face and smack a devil out of you. What you gonna do? What you gonna do?
Hey, Roxanne. Tell me about the history of this park.
This park was started in 1951. Conversation about it started well before that. In about 1950, Eddie Garver, the local desert parson, was at Ray's Cafe having breakfast one morning, and someone from the Chamber of Commerce came in and said, "Hey, have you heard about the unwanted Christ?" Anton Martin had developed or built this Christ statue in his driveway in Inglewood, California, and the townspeople were asking him to move it on because it was quite large. They chose not to take it, and so he was trying to promote it and find a spot for it. So Eddie Garver got wind of that and went to see him, and they worked out an idea, and Easter Sunday sunrise service was always held here. And many Sunday mornings, Easter Sunday mornings, were 3,000 people.
But it wasn't just a Christian park. I mean, there was more to it and more to their vision than that.
That's right. Part of their corporate documents state that it's non-denominational and that it is a place of peace for all people to enjoy.
They had a falling out, no?
They did.
Carver and Anton Martin?
Garver and Anton Martin, yes. There was a disagreement about music being played, some reports say, and others say that there was disagreement about monies. Only those two men know the true story. It's unfortunate the two men who were promoting world peace in our desert were not able to figure it out, make it work.
So Roxanne, this is what, the Sermon on the Mount?
This is the Sermon on the Mount with 12 disciples.
12 disciples all gathered around. Well, there's one disciple over here I want to go take a look at because
Certainly.
He's got his back turned to Jesus. And that can't mean anything good. They look so serious.
They do.
So, Roxanne, Judas?
Judas.
Okay. And he's got his little bag of silver right here.
He does. He does.
Turned his back to Christ. Well, I want to go see the Garden of Gethsemane.
All right.
So, Roxanne, I get the feeling we should be quiet up here.
I think they're sleeping.
We're in the Garden of Gethsemane.
We are.
And Jesus is all alone.
Praying.
Praying up there. And his disciples are all like
Napping.
Back in 1951, when Anton Martin began his work in Desert Christ Park, Yucca Valley didn't amount to much. The town didn't even incorporate until 1991, and when it did incorporate, it did so as a town, not a city. Today, the population of this high desert town is just over 20,000. The Old Town section of Yucca Valley is undergoing a bit of a revival these days, with a variety of fun antique shops, retailers, restaurants, and even its own wine tasting room. Numerous local artists have found an outlet for their work here, and savvy antiquers from nearby Palm Springs know this is where the deals can be found. There's frequently live entertainment on weekends, and on the first Saturday of every month, Old Town Yucca Valley stays open late and celebrates for locals and visitors. Carlos Reyes, who runs Artifacts and serves as a director for the Yucca Valley Chamber of Commerce, has helped stimulate the current Old Town revival. Carlos!
Hey, how you doing, Steve?
Doing good.
Good to see you.
Now, what's the latest here at Artifacts?
We have about 90 local artists of the Morongo Basin area. This is one of Eddie Choke's creations, very Jules Verne.
Okay, we're getting into steampunk
Yes,
stuff
he's
here.
very steampunk. This furniture is made by a 30-year-old guy. His name is Corey Hamilton, Corey Hamilton Designs. And he brands these specific tables with the Heart of the High Desert logo.
That's something you came up with, right?
Yes, it's a logo that I created for the town of Yucca Valley.
Okay. Now, why did you create a logo for the town of Yucca Valley?
Well, because this shop is inspired by all the art that happens out here in the desert, and many artists did not have a home. The merchants were hurting during the time of the recession, and when I came in, we started to get together and talk about what can we do to revitalize the neighborhood, the district, and we created something called First Saturday.
Well, thanks, Carlos. We'll be seeing you later.
Alrighty then.
Are you gonna cook something?
No, it might be kind of nice.
Well, you know, a person with a well-developed palate like you goes for the reds. So, let me, grab, I just happen to have a bottle of our Money Penny Merlot here.
So now what's up next, Buster?
I'm gonna treat you to something very good. This is a blend from
It's in a
Northern
box.
California. Oh, yeah. For sure.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything bad about box wines ever again, okay? Because that's a beautiful one.
It is tasty. This is the way to aromatize.
Aromatize or aromatize?
Volatile.
Volatile.
The aromatic estus.
Okay, now that one's delightful.
Mm-hmm.
So where do we go from here?
Well, next I would suggest a Pinot Noir. Very popular. Volatilize.
Volatilize.
The aromatic estus.
Estus. Yes. But now, this wine tasting room is not like any other wine tasting room I've ever come across.
Why do you say that?
Well, it's got a little character to it.
Our theme here, you brought that out. If you look around here, you'll see a little bit of east and west. Our theme is cowboy feng shui. I personally practice feng shui. I am a rat in the Chinese calendar. I've got something special for you.
Okay.
One of my favorites, again from Northern California, Sonoma County. It's an Old Vine Zinfandel, and this is called the Cloud Buster. They have a tendency to have a little higher alcohol content and be a little sweeter. Half a bottle of that, you're ready for bed.
I'm out here with Hal. That's to build tension. Heiner, a music producer out here in the high desert. Now, Hal, you've been a musician. You've been in the music business for like forever. But now, how did all that start?
Well, my first performance was, I was 5 years old. We had a stage on an old house in Venice where I grew up, and I lip-synced Hound Dog, ain't nothing but a hound dog, and the record skipped. Then I was in surf bands and Beatle bands.
You even opened for another desert legend out here, Dick Dale.
Dick Dale.
Surf Guitar King.
Dick Dale, we had a band called the Squirts. I was in it for a while.
How old
Silly
were you
name.
back then?
I think I was 13, 12 or 13. Our son started encouraging us to go to the open mic nights. So we said, okay, let's go to those. And that's what we started doing, sitting at open mic nights. And Lorene, my wife, and I, who conceived this entire album, actually, she conceives my children and everything else, I guess. The songs that we would hear all had some pretty cool story behind them. The album is called The Stars That Shine in Joshua Tree. Yeah, the young couple that came in, when the girl came in to listen to the playback, she almost cried, made us cry. She said, is that me? And we were like, yeah. And she goes, I've never heard my voice like that. I mean, it was just awesome to see the joy in their hearts to have been asked. Michael Perez was another artist who has lived here for 30 years, I think, and never been asked to be on a compilation album. And I heard his instrumental song, Lorena and I, and we said, that's pretty cool. We don't have an instrumental, let's put that on there. you know, and he goes, what? It'll be on? You know, he was
Couldn't even
so
believe it.
overwhelmed, you know. And oh, what a version of the song we have. He's so great. But Stars That Shine in
right.
Joshua Tree. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
The wind was born up on Highway 62, between the rocks and the canyons, the hawks and the sun and the moon. When you're stuck in the city with a whole lot of nothing to do, come on and travel up on our way. Everybody's higher up on Highway 62. Only the snow-covered mountains, the stars, the sun and the moon are looking down on you. The fire was born up on Highway 62, between the lightning bolts through the night and shooting stars across the sky. Red arrows in my heart up on Highway 62, between the turbines and military wings, between the ricochet and old woman springs. Everybody's higher up on Highway 62. Only the snow-covered mountains, the stars, the sun and the moon are looking down on you. Quiet was born up on Highway 62, between the shadows from the moonlight, coyotes howling on a dark night, and the wind through my lazy hair, and the songs of my friend, and the trucks on your roadway, and the bombs and the airplanes. Everybody's higher up on Highway 62. Only the snow-covered mountains, the stars, the sun and the moon. Everybody's higher up on Highway 62. Only the snow-covered mountains, the stars, the sun and the moon are looking down on you.
Another of my favorite desert artists, Bobby First, lives in Joshua Tree near the entrance to the national park. All the musicians featured on Hal's compilation album project, The Stars That Shine in Joshua Tree, will be performing tonight at Bobby's studio, First World. But first, I have a little time with Bobby First. What I love about what you do with art is that I'm not sure quite where the ordinary stops off and the art begins.
I find objects and things and use the patinas of age or history as my palette. I find beauty in older things or bits and pieces of machinery or technology. I acquire things that I have a sense of potential with. I may hold on to that for a week, a month, a year, or a decade before it finds its place. But all of a sudden, one piece of this connects in my mind with a piece of that, and all of a sudden, a process starts. There's so many bits and pieces of things from the past that have color, shape, form, and texture that I feel meld in the right way that it works for me. I came to the desert for, to find affordable space. Now I have some space to kind of spread out and get more organized. Some things need to be protected in some way. Others can sit outside and get better and better just from the elements.
They season.
And it's the elements and the world changing and the day changing and the weather changing, and it's all part of the process. And for me, I'm in love with the process. I make my living being a carpenter. I make art for dialogue. My reward is people's reactions and talking to them and, getting a sense of, well, what attracted you? And, people come here and there's always something, I haven't seen one of those since my grandfather showed me what it was, 50 years ago. And I go, what is it?
Because I have no idea.
I don't necessarily know what it is. There's just something about it.
You found
color,
it.
shape, form, texture, and appeal.
Probably the first piece of yours that really grabbed my attention and just like nailed it was the peace sign that you had made, but using shell casings from bullets fired, and each bullet stood for
an American casualty in the war in Iraq.
It seems like in one way or another, the arts have long played a role in the culture of this part of the Mojave Desert. There are almost as many artists and musicians and writers and other talented creative folk here as there are Joshua trees. Whether it was Anton Martin finding a home, not just for his unwanted Christ, but for himself, to contemporary artists like Bobby First and Snake Jagger, and people like Carlos Reyes and Hal Heiner who just dive in and support local talent and have some of their own, there's a creative spirit that permeates the high desert up Route 62. And with all that creativity comes stories, Southwest stories, spun in words, music, imagery, and action that complement so well the natural beauty of my little piece of the desert.
We don't want to talk about what we know.
Southwest Stories with Steve Brown is made possible by the support of The Real Route 66, Chicago to LA, a 2-week tour of America's Mother Road, May 2015. The Ridgecrest area, western gateway to Death Valley National Park, home to the annual Petroglyph Festival. Lake Havasu City, Arizona, home to the historic London Bridge. Beaches, boating, fishing, and golf. Cactus Mart, a dig-your-own cactus nursery and desert artist gallery on the highway to Joshua Tree National Park in Morongo Valley. Calmada Boutique Hotel, a desert bed and breakfast resort with a French chef, located on 40 acres near Joshua Tree National Park. China Ranch, a working date farm and natural oasis near Death Valley National Park, open for visitation year-round.